Lubumbashi and Kinshasa, I think. Well, if you're among the first 5, correct, chocolate or coffee. Well, Nation Africa Cup or goals to 1, and we will definitely has disclosed that an official from the Inspectorate of Government investigating NSSF. Inspector General of Government Justice Irene Mulyagonja told NTV that indeed the matter of the bribe was reported to them and the official is now facing prosecution in the anti-corruption court.
Outgoing NSSF Managing Director Richard Byarugaba took over the 4.5 trillion shillings pension fund after David Chandi Jamwa was thrown out over allegations of corruption and mismanagement. During Byarugaba's tenure, NSSF investment shot from 1.7 trillion shillings to over 4 trillion shillings in less than 5 years, but questions remain on his record. Indeed, the Inspector General of Government took interest in NSSF dealings and launched investigations. But Byarugaba now says the Ombudsman's office has rotten apples. Byarugaba claimed before the Select Parliamentary Committee probing NSSF that an IGG official demanded a 1 billion shillings bribe to exonerate him of allegations of mismanaging NSSF.
I can say this on camera, of 1 billion shillings, and I did not cooperate.
I told them about this bribe request.
Who is this person bribing for 1 billion?
Since you
and you are here.
Unfortunately, I don't know her other name, but she's called Jane.
And the person wants $1 billion?
He wanted $1 billion.
Is this madness?
It is madness.
The IGG Justice Irene Mulyagonja confirmed the bribery allegations, adding that the matter was now in the anti-corruption court.
She did not only ask for a bribe from Mr. Byarugaba, because Mr. Byarugaba never formally, officially made the complaint to this office. But we received the complaint from the Deputy Managing Director, Geraldine Salibusulwa, that the same person, she was a Principal Inspectorate Officer called Jane Tushemereirwe Mpeirwe. He recorded conversations.
Justice Mulyagonja says an MP and a retired resident district commissioner whom she did involved in soliciting the alleged bribe.
So we were supposed to catch her and the Member of Parliament.
The IGG report had adversely mentioned Byarugaba in the mismanaging NSSF, but he says commissioned the fund into their hunting ground, which he resisted.
And this group of people normally does not own construction companies, but they are what you'd almost term, for want of a technical word, middlemen. So they basically align themselves to all these people who want to construct. They come in and try to influence the process.
Byarugaba also claimed that in David Jamwa's tenure as MD, NSSF spent billions of workers' money buying non-existent land in Hoima and the wetland in Mbarara.
The Hoima land, after about 2 years ago, we received a letter from the LC chairman saying that we had bought air. They bought land in Kabale, a plot. It was passing, all the sewage in the town was passing there, so you can't even use it. They bought land in Mbarara. It is in the swamp.
Byarugaba proposed that for NSSF to thrive, the act should be amended to cut the powers of the finance minister on taking investment decisions. Jingo Francis, NTV, Parliament.
More intrigue there in the NSSF. Well, lawmakers have put to task embattled Minister of Works and Transport, Abraham Byandala, to explain the saga around the tarmacking of the Mukono Katosi Chisoga Nyenga Road. During a debate on the road sector budget for the 2014-15 financial year in Parliament, the MPs were... the MPs were concerned that taxpayers could have lost over 24 billion shillings to a contractor who is yet to complete even 30% of the road. But Byandala, who has been on the spot of the controversy-ridden 165 billion shilling road, told MPs that government has not lost money on the project. As Agnes Nandutu reports, Byandala explained that the 24 billion shillings was advanced to the contractor to enable them start work, but that money would be recovered.
About 4 years ago, the Uganda National Roads Authority awarded the contract for the Mukono Katosi Chisoga Nyenga Road works to Itau, an American company. But controversy arose after reports emerged that government had paid 24.7 billion shillings as an advance to individuals not connected to the US-based firm. Minister of Works and Transport Abraham Byandala has been accused of influence peddling by allegedly directing the Roads Authority to sign the contract without doing due diligence to ITAO. As they debated the Works Ministry budget, MPs put Byandala to task to explain the 24.7 billion shillings that was given to the contractor for no work.
There were issues of people saying money has been lost. What was paid, Mr. Speaker, was advance payment. Advance payment. And advance payment, right, Honorable Speaker, is money given to a contractor to facilitate him, to kickstart him. And this money is recovered. I'm talking about the contractor, not whom.
It is completely wrong, in my view, for the minister to assume that that money is safe. How safe is that money when it is being given to people whose legal identity is questionable?
But some MPs were not satisfied. They now want Minister Byandala to clearly explain the process leading to the award of the contract to ITAO.
The minister should rise up to the occasion, see what went wrong with this contract, come up with plausible solutions to the mess, and it's then that he can come and proclaim to Ugandans that this contract and therefore the roadworks are safe and will be done to its logical conclusion.
The UNRA board recently suspended the acting managing director, director of planning, and head of legal affairs over the road scandal. This was on the recommendation of the Inspector General of Government.
And we know there are some ministers, cabinet ministers, who are also involved. Now, what is the fate of those ministers, the policy makers?
Several lawmakers also expressed dissatisfaction with UNRA, saying the Roads Authority had failed to construct many roads countrywide, despite the trillions of shillings allocated for roads in the national budget. The MPs are now demanding for a forensic audit into UNRA. Agnes Nandutu, NTV, Parliament.
Thank you, Agnes. At least 400 households have been displaced and about 800 acres of crops submerged in flood waters after heavy rains fell in Butaleja district. Transport has been paralyzed and schools rendered inaccessible. Residents in 3 sub-counties are now not only looking for shelter after River Manafa burst its banks. The residents are now urging government to give them relief.
Just like many of his fellow farmers here, Adam Kapisa was expecting a bumper harvest and at least 1.5 million shillings as proceeds from the sale of his maize, beans and soya beans. But that expectation has been dashed by heavy rains falling over the last 1 month and flooding Imutu, Maizimasa and Kachonga sub-counties in Butaleja district. As a result, many residents here are now staring famine in the face. The floods have rendered Kapisa's household and that of 400 others homeless and also washed away 800 acres of crops. Crossing River Manafa is now a hassle due to the constant floods, and transport has been paralyzed. At least 3 schools are inaccessible due to the floods. Local leaders claim that some residents have drowned while trying to cross the river.
We are likely to have diarrheal infections with a quick response on the infestation of cholera. In that case, we're also going to realize that the mosquitoes are going to breed, so there's going to be a high prevalence of malaria.
As the River Manafa waters continue overflowing, the leaders are worried that the situation could get worse.
We have concluded the assessment, and a priority is going to be given to the aspects of food items and non-food items as we hold on for the long-term interventions.
In recent years, Butaleja district, which has a flat terrain, has suffered most whenever it floods in the Bugisu sub-region. Last week, the Meteorological Department warned that most parts of the country will experience above normal rains until mid-December. Many districts in eastern Uganda, especially in Teso and Karamoja sub-regions, have borne the brunt of the heavy rains.
Now, compared to cattle, many Ugandans rear goats mainly for domestic purposes. But one farmer in Kumi district is into commercial goat keeping and is getting a handsome cash return from the venture. Moses Kwapi has 120 goats so far, but when push comes to shove, he's forced to sell off some of the goats to cover expenses like buying drugs and treating the goats when they fall sick. Sudhir Vyaruhanga with this On the Farm feature.
On the Farm is brought to you by
Cooper Motors Corporation, is Uganda's leading and most reliable agriculture equipment supplier and partner.
We arrived in Opiu village in Kumi district at 10 o'clock in the morning to visit Moses Kwapi's goat farm. Our first contact is Francis Akello, who is in charge of the goats. Akello has been the manager of this farm for 2 years now. The farm has 120 goats, which include local and crossbred species. The herdsman is so used to the goats that he has a unique way of communicating with the animals.
But if you're not used to them, you can call all voices you want. They will not respond to you.
He makes this sound calling the goats to come for salt, and the animals recognize that call.
It boosts the appetite of eating, so that when they go out, any grass they chew, they assume that one is salt.
The goat sanctuary is surrounded by a hedge which protects the animals from thieves and dogs that could attack them.
If the land was small, you can't just put them there. Instead, you will just create chaos with the people in the community. So you have to consider the land first, you have to consider the market, so you have to consider the water source.
Most of the local goats here are crossbred with exotic he-goats.
Like this exotic breed, we normally bring a percentage of 75% to cross with the one of 50%, so that it comes like 70% to 75%.
Akel explains that the key differentiator of the local kids from the crossbreed are the dangling ears. Even with this huge number of goats living in the same compound, the farm caretakers do not allow the goats to interbreed. Some of the exotic breeds cannot stand high temperatures, and so special provision has to be made for them, since this area is normally hot.
When it's too hot, they die. When it's very cold, they die. That's the very big challenge we have here, mostly. And when it's dry season, there's no grass for these goats.
The goats spend the night inside or outside the house, depending on the weather.
Because if you leave them just loitering out, if they produce from there, automatically the dogs will come and eat the kid which they have produced.
The floor is constructed 2 to 3 meters above the ground, and that gap allows the goat urine and dung to drop down. This is to protect the goats from their waste for health reasons.
Because if they sleep in a dirty place, automatically they will get that disease and they die.
The house is cleaned daily to protect the goats from catching cough and associated diseases. They are also periodically dewormed. Akel told us that they spend 250,000 shillings every month on maintaining the farm. This cost covers the medicine, staff wages, and other expenses. The farm directly employs 4 people.
If we are lacking something, we sell, because they are the ones to keep themselves. We don't ask a boss that boss want this.
The goats are always released at around 11 in the morning for grazing when the dew has dried up so that they can avoid catching diseases. This is because the morning dew always attracts different worms and germs.
It gives them wounds in their mouth and even in between their legs there.
The goats are released at about 11:30 a.m. to graze, and they will spend 3 hours in the savanna grassland before being led to the well to drink water.
If they get satisfied, they come inside by themselves without anyone forcing them that go back in.
The manager says the farm owner Moses Kwapi started out by rearing 50 goats, and after they multiplied, 8 of them were sold off.
The future plan for this farm, are going to remove all these tree stumps, and then we plant at least enough grass like pasture grasses, this elephant grass.
The 120 goats on the farm now could double in less than a year. Sudil Biarhanga, NTV.
Cooper Motors Corporation Uganda Limited is Uganda's reliable distributor for New Holland tractors. Find us at CMC Building, Katalima Loop, plot 48 to 49, Nakawa.
National Water and Sewerage Corporation has extended the amnesty to illegal water consumers to 14th September. Under the amnesty, anyone who has been obtaining water through illegal connections knowingly or otherwise can report and will not be prosecuted, but instead be helped to regularize their connections. Illegal water connections encompass bypassing water meters, vandalizing them, meter reversals, and self-connections.
The National Water and Sewerage Corporation says it loses over 30% of water that is intended for legitimate consumers and at least 1 billion shillings monthly due to illegal water connections. The corporation's senior manager for marketing and customer service, Richard Muhanji, says they are tightening the nut on the illegal water consumers in partnership with the police under the Water Loss Prevention Program.
We have very serious punitive measures to make sure that those who have been playing with our system are really handled.
He warns culprits that the law will catch up with them regardless of their status in society. Even national water staff abetting this water theft will be prosecuted. The deputy commandant of the police flying squad says they have dedicated personnel to work with the corporation.
We have intelligence, we'll be gathering intelligence. We have a unit that will be carrying operations, that is arrests. I've come to learn that there are big people that are involved. My brothers and sisters, you need to understand that in Uganda, nobody is above the law.
The corporation's Deputy Executive Director, Johnson Amayo, explained the forms of illegal water connections.
If you go to the reservoir and you climb up when the valve, the meter is closed and water is still flowing into your reservoir, and that also shows that you have a legal bypass.
The public is urged to report cases of illegal water connections to National Water through Facebook, Twitter, and the toll-free lines including 08001 00977. Illegal water connections also lower the pressure and the amount of water available to legitimate users. Sheila Tusime Mugisha, NTV.
Although savings levels across Uganda's microfinance sector is in the threshold of $1 trillion shillings, disclosure as well as governance among players remains low. It is now thought that unless legislation to expand supervision beyond micro-deposit-taking institutions is quickly effected, growth of this financial tier may be stifled.
Delayed legislation on the microfinance sector aimed at lifting up governance as well as supervision is further affecting disclosure, in spite of the pressure to strengthen savings from the public.
The change in the increase in savings, increase in loan portfolio, increase of outreach, because most of the figures we have sometimes is like an estimate. But now once the law and the government comes up with this law and reporting is mandatory, we will be able to tell exact figures.
Speakers on the sidelines of the annual Citibank Microfinance Sector Awards say the industry needs to be treated much more seriously.
You have the government propagating microfinance as a means of alleviating poverty in the country. And I think that's very, very significant. So I think the more capacity that is built there, the more technical support that's available to them, the more structure that is created around that practice, the more regulation that goes down to the level of circles in terms of how you should be structured, how you should handle your finances and co. I think that will enhance that practice.
Relatedly, microfinance service providers report that the half-year performance of their businesses remain weak as economic activities are yet to fully pick up.
Notice that most institutions where the loans are not doing well, it's because of the challenges that are happening in our neighboring country, that is Southern Sudan. But generally, we are seeing a steady progress, and we are happy that the government has released the budget. We hope that the government expenditure is going to help a lot in terms of releasing funds into the productive sectors of the economy, and then for us we'll be able to lend more money and then spur growth as financial institutions.
Beyond very high interest rates that the country's microfinance segment, inclusive SACCOs, are known for, instances of security for depositors' money remains an issue on the table. Reina Ojan, NTV.
That's all we had for you on our morning bulletin. We now cross over to the gentlemen, Simon and Joel, for today's press review. Good morning, Simon.
Well, good morning once again for those of you just as for this edition of Morning at NTV's press review. It's the 11th day of September 2014, and of course many of you will remember that September 11, that particular date, certainly changed the way the world is looked at and the way we behave across the globe. We just, cannot ever forget what September 11 is, or should I put it in the way it's actually more fondly known, 9/11. And today we are commemorating yet another anniversary from that gruesome incident that took place so many years ago, so far away from this place. But the effect, the ripple effect, has been felt hard and even harder in this part of the world. Well, we'll be looking at the Daily Monitor this morning and the Red Pepper this morning, and of course sharing with you what's making it the headlines. But of course we're also waking up to the interestingly rejuvenating news of the cranes thrashing of Guinea. And I'm sure the Guinea team must have woken up to watch this morning review. No hard feelings, brothers. It's only a game of football. You only came to our mighty fort. And obviously, the better team did win the game. Headline on the front page of the Daily Monitor: the cranes news of being on top of the table. Or should I put it plainly as the Monitor puts it? Cranes top. I'm joined by Joel this morning. Brian is indisposed. He's unable to be with us for the usual obvious recurrent problems of his, and we wish him a very quick recovery. But Brian, remember, I have always warned you against doing it nera, and you know what I'm talking about. This is a recorded message to you, but we commiserate.
Coming for the press review nera.
He knows why he's not here, and we only can wish. His problems he brought
out to decipher that cryptic puzzle.
His problems he brought out to himself. I told him, I mean, if you must get rid of body parts, get rid of body parts that can regenerate themselves, like hair and nails. God was not wrong to give ears, earlobes, these ones here. He was not wrong to give the mouth lips. He was not wrong to give eyes eyelids. Now, when you start cutting off eyelids from your eyes, obviously any dust will certainly affect your eye.
But it's the same one that commanded back in the day that you should do it. Our Lord and Savior.
No, you cut your hair, you cut your nails because they grow back again. Hey. Otherwise, next time what we'll be cutting off our legs because they say one leg is good. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning to you.
I am glad that you have not subjected yourself to that self-annihilation like many Ugandans do, who cut off vital body parts in the guise of,
It was done to me when I was about a week old. It's a good thing to do. If I was my parents, I would have done it to me.
Well, we're talking about Brian, who I think attempted to pierce his ear, so clearly he's not feeling well this morning. He will be telling us exactly how he's faring on in the days to come. But let's look at what's making the headlines this morning. You have with you a copy of the Daily Monitor with a nice and interesting screaming headline. Did you watch the game?
I didn't get a chance to. By the time I got home, it was done already. But
Joel, you disappoint me. You don't support the good work the government does. You do not believe in the way our parliament works. You cannot even go and support the cranes. What do you do for the good of the nation other than criticizing?
That is good enough. But I support the Uganda cranes. I encourage people to go. I was not able to go myself. But an interesting match it was, Some people feel it was Guinea against Massa. And this guy of ours did us proud. So we should keep shining. We should keep shining. And a lot more in the Daily Monitor here. We're told government is to open a Swahili training laboratory. I'll tell you, Ugandans are not too good with Swahili. For some reason, they do not seem to like it. I don't know why. I am learning it myself. But they keep talking about, it's going to help to better the economics and so on. I don't know. Sometimes I imagine that is far-fetched. But I love the language, so I am learning the language. Uganda youth to train in accountability programs. Well,
do they need it? I mean, they need first get some money to themselves for them to be able to account. Anyway.
Well, hold government accountable. That is the major push for it.
And who's going to teach them this accountability?
They are going to one of those countries where apparently accountability is done a lot better than us here.
So those countries, where did they go to learn accountability?
I don't know. They've built it over time.
And why can't we build it here over time? Because you see, what I've never understood is the British fought for Britain and made it the Great Britain that we talk about. The same guys, from scratch, they realized only them can build their country. But for us, our rights are fought for by Human Rights Watch. Maria Barnett is the one who fights for all Ugandans' rights. For her, it is Maria Barnett's right.
You're very apathetic.
When we want democratic change in this country, it is Uncle Sam or the Honorable Almighty Obama the one who fights for our rights. When we want to get some developmental programs going on here, we run to the IMF. Lagarde, President Lagarde is the one who we run to. Now, when we want accountability, we are running to another country to learn accountability. What do we ever do for ourselves other than pillaging this country? And I'm not saying it's only the government, the entire populace. Tell me, Joel, you're the guy who is into all these governance issues.
Good question. So when some of us try
when do we do anything for ourselves? When we want to eat, I see in supermarkets here in Uganda, I see packed juices from Egypt exporting to Uganda, packed fruit juices.
I saw that yesterday and it bothered me quite a great deal. You should know that even Israel, for example, it exports a lot more bananas than any country we know about. Do you know that Israel had to ferry soil from this country of ours? And they took it, they flew it on planes, And now
some of it from Nakasongola. Where you come from?
Where I do come from, So I don't know. I think we should dig in our heels as Ugandans. That is why when some of us are concerned about one or two things, they say, these ones, they just criticize and that kind of thing. For starters, let's be concerned. Let's give credit where it is due. When there is need to castigate, we should castigate. And talking about castigation, UPC is saying there's unfairness in the students' loan scheme. The loan scheme that has rolled out. Government is focusing a great deal on sciences. UPC feels, look, you are not paying attention to Northern Uganda and Eastern Uganda, parts that have been enfeebled by, of course, the LRA war and, of course, the likes of Soroti.
This is a loan or a grant?
It is a loan.
So I thought you give loans to someone who is going to pay, as opposed to someone who is in a more disadvantaged position.
No, the point is, these students...
Because normally when we are going for, I go to financial institutions here for loans. If you show up at my local bank, they ask you so many questions, including, to ascertain the fact that you are not more of a liability and that you will be able to pay for this loan, as opposed to someone that may not have exactly the kind of collateral that I possibly have. So if there's a student's loan, possibly, maybe, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. What's the rationale of giving someone a student's loan when you know that possibly when they come to the job market, which is infiltrated by largely technical know-who as opposed to technical know-how, how is someone from Northern Uganda or Eastern Uganda going to be able to get a job and pay back this loan?
That's an interesting one, but how is any of these chaps going to, because look, actually after finishing campus, you're given 1 year to begin paying back. If you fail to do that, you're jailed for 6 months and you still pay a fine of 1 million shillings. We know the statistics, a very staggering figure of our young people that finish school don't get jobs. So we are going to arrest them. In fact, now we should focus more on building more jails and that kind of thing, because we are going to arrest these young people. I doubt they are going to pay these monies.
But again, as Ugandans, aren't we always being like the proverbial foolish person, according to the Chinese proverb, that a foolish person will always look for a problem in every opportunity, while a wise person looks for an opportunity in every problem. Here we are grappling with the ability to take ourselves to school. And government has said, well, we'll give you a loan. Now we are wallowing into the problems of the loan, and we are looking at all the cons as opposed to the pros, and we're wasting a lot more man hours and energies into the problems and the ramifications of getting this loan, as opposed to welcoming the fact that finally there is someone who is going to be able to go to school thanks to a loan, and then they can grapple with paying it back thereafter. Because, of course, life is not a bed of roses anyway.
Without a doubt. But we should make it practical. And this is just like my attitude towards UPE. I think UPE, USE, those are very good programs. It's good that people can get to study if they're not able to afford it. But when you look at the modus operandi, you're thinking, really, can we patch this thing up and make it a lot better? Kids are studying under trees. They're taught by one teacher who teaches all the subjects, who comes in whenever they want to. So
but you see, the absence of that setting would mean that that kid would possibly be at home. And by the time if you have a kid that studies under a tree, I don't think they're coming from a tiled house back home. No. The school is possibly better than the home where that child is coming from.
Without a doubt, they'll probably be there on
possibly even living
and
possibly not even having a meal to eat except raw cassava tubers pulled out from the ground in a strange setting. So while we are looking at We find them in schools. We decry the state of their schools. But go back to their homes where they have able-bodied parents who are spending much of their time drinking on little trading centers, brewing local brew and consuming it themselves. And at the end of the day, you want to blame that on government. I find that really unfair.
I hear you. So my argument, the premise of my argument is that we can do better. For me, that's the argument of, yes, it's good that we are taking them to school, but we can do better. And we should be able to do better.
Museveni gives Mbabazi shocking prophecy. That's the headline in the red paper this morning. And there's a picture of one of the youth who emanated from somewhere in Wandegea yesterday wearing pro-Mbabazi t-shirts and taking a demonstration onto the streets of Kampala. Now, this is quite an interesting scenario. And yesterday I did watch in the news the Honorable Prime Minister saying that he is not aware of this group, but perhaps he wanted to find out more from the powers that be, that's the police who stopped them, and want to believe that the Right Honorable Prime Minister has found out exactly what's going on with these new groups of demonstrations that, for the most part, are calling for him to cut his losses, cut his profits, and stand for the presidency in 2016. Yesterday, he was one of those multitudes that thronged the Nambole in the night to watch this game. And I saw pictures of placards there where some people were saying, Honorable Mbabazi, please, we want you to be president, you know. And in fact, I've seen some tweets and Facebook posts saying that, man, we will drag you to court if you do not stand for the presidency in 2016. I think this is something that's gaining quite some bit of momentum.
It is, without a doubt. But look, I'll tell you, many of those that are supporting Honorable Mbabazi, it's not so much because they love the man, yeah? It's because they are tired of his opponent, or the perceived opponent for that matter. So many of them blowing hot and cold that he should stand. It's interesting, the president quoted for him Daniel 5:25.
You are the guy who has the Bible at the tip of your fingers. What does Daniel 5:25?
Not the whole of it. I'll need to check it out and see what it says. But one of those prophecies. But Simon, you were an altar boy for how many years?
5 consistently good years, and that was 25 years ago. That was 25 years ago.
That was 25 years ago.
Yeah. But I also know there is a scripture, I cannot quote the exact number, but it says, they went around preaching my name, claiming that they know me, but I can tell you most solemnly, I do not know them.
Not everybody who says,
Lord,
shall inherit the kingdom.
So, Joel, that for me is my message to you, just like Mbabazi has gotten his from Museveni. Well, indeed, talking about Mbabazi and yesterday, gladly you did not watch, because now you'll be hounding me with why there was 5 minutes of electricity
I was following, interestingly,
at the National Stadium, and of course calls were coming in from, where is the electricity? I was quick to get on the phone, get to my control room in Narubari to find out exactly from ESCOM what exactly was going on. And I can tell you, let me just tell you what did not happen. What did not happen is that you cannot blame this on a generation of electricity. There was enough electricity being pumped out, at least from one of the biggest generators of electricity onto the grid, which is NTVUganda Limited's management of Kira and Narubari. At that time, from 7 p.m. last evening, we were powering 240 megawatts, and that was the demand as of Uganda Electricity Distribution Company.
240 to Namboli alone?
No, to the country, to the grid.
240 megawatts, that sounds little. Anyway.
Well, your overall consumption at the most peak in this country is no more than 600 megawatts. And remember, we're not the only generators in this country. There's Bujagadi, there is Electromax, there is Kinya, there is Kachira. There are little mini hydros all over the place. Then there are these ones which are in, there's Ayago, there's, many of these. Now, outside Nambole Stadium, Joker's Hotel and all these adjoining areas, there was electricity. The blackout was in the stadium.
Was there some sadist, some of these
I do not know. Nelson Mandela Stadium management should explain to Ugandans, and do not blame it on women. At least that one for sure is that there was electricity, even in parts of the stadium, like the hotel had electricity. But the floodlights failed. And at Nambole itself, there is a huge base station that supplies much of that adjoining area, a Umeme base station for distribution. So whatever it is, it certainly was a technical fault that should have been within the realm of the National Stadium management. But again, one would ask, what really happens spick and span in this country without a technical glitch here and there?
I was having a chat with somebody this morning who was telling me we exposed our ineptitude as it usually is, This is a match that was, I don't know how many people were watching it,
but again, that's also not, we're not playing Barcelona, or we're not playing the Spanish national team. We're playing Guinea.
Are you saying that's why we hit them 2-0? Now, we are told that there's a scorecard that is coming to measure government performance. This is being architected by the Public Service Ministry. I would want a scorecard for starters for Public Service Ministry.
From
itself.
their minister down to the good old man, John Mitara, we know him very well for other things, down up to their, they are the minister. Anyway, I hope the scorecard also has an element of edge because with all due respect, the Right Honorable Kajura, as a head of this, my good old grandmother from Bugangari, where I come from, Priska Mbaguta, that lady, how they...
I think they have run their race.
Clearly, I would want to see her in a proper retirement, living her life without the hustle and bustle of running government. I think she has mentored and groomed so many competent people within the realms of public service and even in politics who should be able to take that on from her. But again, in this country, we have this, some people have the spirit of never say die. But well, let's hope that the scorecard does deliver some results. Remember there was African Leadership Institute by Purkol and Erika Nohanga who put together a scorecard for members of parliament. These members of parliament who are always accusing seriously read, deeply knowledgeable, highly industrious managing directors of NSSF, calling them incompetent and all that, they themselves could not accept a scorecard based, not even much on, the scorecard was largely basing on their presence in parliament. Forget about the quality of what you say, but just to be present there. But many of them fell short of that very basic tenet of, okay, show up and be a rubber stamp, show up and be a listening post, show up and be a damn dead wooden stick sitting on a chair. They were not even able to do that basic thing. They were within the precincts of parliament, yes, perhaps running out from loan sharks. But where we hope that this scorecard does achieve the basis for which it is being mooted. Well, in the red paper this morning, away from the Mbabazi story.
Maybe before we go away from the Mbabazi story, I see two stories here in the Daily Monitor. One is good news, the other is bad news for Amama Mbabazi, the Prime Minister. Well, let me begin with the bad news. Police blocks Mbabazi youth demonstration.
But he says he's not aware of them, and that cannot be bad news for him as an individual.
I doubt that. I doubt that highly. I don't know. They seem very well funded. I'm not saying he is, but clearly when you read between the lines, I don't know. At least his cronies, the people around him probably know something about it. But then we're told Mbabazi Rugunda bank case dismissed. This is the National Bank of Commerce where he is a director. They had a fraud case on their necks. The courts have dismissed it. So good news for the good old man.
Well, why Kampala police boss was fired, we're talking about the recent reshuffles that did take place in the police where we had Andrew Felix Kawesi now moved to be the director of operations, and the red paper seems to suggest that this guy was actually fired. I do not know whether that is the case, but when I look at the organigram of the police, which the red paper has been kind enough to show us in here, I think clearly you may see that the director of operations, according to this organigram, seems to be lower than where Kampala Metropolitan Police Chief was in the hierarchy of needs. So
I thought so personally, because anyway, I'm yet to study.
But I did listen. I read a post, I think, by one of my very senior colleagues and a man I highly respect, Joachim Bwembo, who says, you see, the police chief of Kampala Metropolitan area is an RPC really in all senses. The director
is like the Lord Mayor as compared to LC5 chairman.
He's an RPC. Yes, he happens to be, he's like the Lord Mayor of Kampala, yes, but who is in essence an LC5 chairperson, really, Then when you're a director of operations, you are an RPC of RPCs. In other words, you are slightly above that. You deploy them, you are all that. But this organigram seems to be at variance with this point. I need to educate myself more on the positions and all that of the police. But one thing is for sure, we know that there was a reshuffle. Whatever it is, there we have it for whatever reasons. Only that, of course, with all these reshuffles taking here at the top, we are huffing and puffing, and we are forgetting the ordinary constables who are doing a tremendous job. And because like I applied, no, he's a bogus guy. Anyway, like I apply that road, many of them. There is an interesting, again, I think from the same station as Buyinza, a young lady there called Achayo. Very helpful on the road, and she operates from around Bwegere area, that stretch, the same place where. Then there's another cantankerous character who I saw taking a bribe yesterday from a Mercedes-Benz. Wait a minute, from a Kenyan registered Mercedes-Benz. I know the number, I will share it if he dares me. That Obonyo character is called Obonyo. Then he had the audacity.
So you want to use it as a carrot?
No, he had better reform. Because he must understand that while you are on the road, there are people who are watching.
Did you talk to the man?
I did talk to him because you see later he comes riding his bike, carrying another nicely quiet guy called Musinguzi on the bike. I happened to be talking on the phone and I accept. We were in the middle of that Bwegere jam as I was arriving from Jinja yesterday. This man flags me down. I fly, I oblige, I park. I approach him. So I'm talking on the phone, but I have an emergency on my hand and all that. Then I joke to him, because I'd seen him earlier picking something from the Kenyan registered plate. It was a Mercedes-Benz. I said, so, Officer Obonyo, what is the case with Mercedes-Benzes today? You seem to be on a hunt down. Then he was like, yes. Then quickly he says, you are the one who has been blaming my friend Buinsa for parading false accusations. And at that point, he jeered at me. He will live to tell the story of what him and I had as an exchange. I told him in no clear terms. But not to go very personal on this, there are a group of cops who do a tremendous job. Indeed, like that Achayo lady, who I see helping people on the road, who has also helped me on the road, who has stopped me and cautioned me about the state of my car and said, you know, your car is not in a very good condition, at least the way it looks. And you know, from that, you feel that someone is really serving and helping you to realize that you have a falling.
If she had given you a ticket, would you say the same about her?
For the same reason which she should have warned me over, certainly I would be showing her the middle finger. Well, more interesting stories here.
So when she warns you, she's good. When she gives you a ticket, she's bad.
She should warn me first, and when I do not, I am
you know the law.
No, there's nothing about the law.
Anyway, now, these evicted vendors of around Wandegeya, they're appealing to KCCA. They're saying, look, we should lower the rental charges of the operating stalls in Wandegeya market. Look, I see the city is slowly but surely becoming exquisite, but there are concerns, you know, of where are we pushing these people? I think we need to be very concerned. And I imagine it's probably a lot beyond the KCCA. Maybe at national level, we should be concerned. You know, these guys we are throwing out, they're the same ones that will come back as brigands and so on. I don't know. We need to ruminate over it some more, but we need to be sure, where are we taking them?
Joel, you know that there is a freedom of movement, but there is a law against trespass, and certain places must be barricaded.
I'm just talking about planning. We need to plan for this country. If we are saying we don't want vendors all over the place causing curfew, that is for sure, yeah? But if it's economics at play, what are we doing for these people? Because throwing them off is not enough.
What are they doing for themselves? Being Joel, I would want to ply my trade from anywhere. This show could be held anywhere. The other day we were at a roundabout in Kampala, another time would be on the street. But we don't just
being pounded by the rain. I don't know.
But we don't do it on our own. We seek permission. You don't just wake up and speech camp at Nambode and start broadcasting live without getting the right to position. If Nambode says NTV, you're not broadcasting from here, oblige and argue your case there, but do not start claiming, now what do you want us to do? That's false self-entitlement that many Ugandans are grappling from, where they think that the country owes them anything.
But we have a ministry in charge of national planning. I think we should plan. Even though people should not just wait for government to come to their aid. You will wait and wait and wait some more.
Time is certainly not an ally on our side. There are very many interesting stories that we've left out for you in the Daily Monitor, and that's more reason why you should get yourself a copy. If you love your cars, your favorite pull-out magazine, My Car Magazine, is in the Daily Monitor this morning. I'll not tell you what they're writing about, but something that's interesting and touches every one of us that does sit behind the wheels. Of course, if you're looking for love or haven't yet quite found it, just like my friend Joel here, Heart to Heart magazine is in the Daily Monitor for you to imbibe. But even those who are in love and possibly find a few challenges, some of these challenges are enumerated very clearly. Of course, the sports section is awash with interesting stories both on the local and the international scene. Talking about the international scene, Mabel, what's going on the international scene from where you are standing? It's 9/11. Where are the commemorations taking place? What is it that the US government is going to do in commemoration? Bomb Syria? I heard something like that. Share with us more.
Well, Obama is not taking ISIS for granted. He says he's going to degrade them and they will pay heavily for that. But starting off, on the anniversary of 9/11, New York City looks at new threats complicating the terror fighting picture. And yes, this is an anniversary that left so many Americans and the world in despair. And like you said, Simon, earlier, the world has never been the same. You just have to go through an airport, you take off your belt, you take off your shoes. It's madness, really. You're not allowed to move with drinks on planes, even if it's clear that it is a liquid like water, you will have to dispose of it. Well, it did. Bin Laden did change the way security is being looked at since 9/11. New York is still under lots of threats here, but they are ready to tackle them. Well, moving on to Sky News, Oscar Pistorius faces Judgment Day in trial. A judge is set to deliver her verdicts after 41 days of evidence in a murder trial, which has gripped not only South Africa, but the entire world. Oscar Pistorius here with his then girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, a model whom he shot 4 times and said it was in self-defense. My lady, the trial judge who rose from nothing. Who is this lady? She's Thikozil Masipa, and she is at the middle. She's in the middle of this trial, and there's a lot about her here, as well as on the CNN page. Oscar Pistorius's verdict. South African judge holds the athlete's fate in her hands. There's a lot about how she grew up in the poor areas of South Africa, but rose up to be a judge. Also on the CNN page, we spoke about this earlier. You will find no safe haven. Obama's message to ISIS. 475 service members have been deployed to Iraq, but no combat troops deployed already. And this speech he gave has gathered a lot of support. It reminds me of George Bush saying they will hunt Saddam Hussein, and they eventually got him. Obama has laid out a strategy on how they are going to destroy ISIS. Moving on to the BBC page, Gambia's President Jammeh has been asked to reject the anti-gay law. He is very tough. He has called the gay people vermin before and threatened to behead them. And the parliament there has passed a bill to impose life sentences for aggravated homosexuality. The bill, however, has promoted, according to Rights Group, this bill is said to promote state-sponsored homophobia. Again, I'm sure the spotlight will be on Gambia, just as it was on Uganda. On the BBC page, we talked about this yesterday. Goodluck Jonathan was using the hashtag #BringBackGoodluck2015, but it has now been scrapped. Apparently, it wasn't from his office. However, that slogan was on billboards around Abuja and Lagos. So, but he has, I guess, because of the backlash, he has actually withdrawn this hashtag #BringBackGoodluck2015, which has been trending. And moving on to Reuters, which seems to have just disappeared. Lots happening in the Far East with Poland and Russia still on some kind of stalemate. That's all we had for you in today's international news. Morning at NTV will be back after the break.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
Babe, you know you are truly an angel.
Aww.
I love your walk, your smile, your laugh, everything. You know what else, babe?
What?
You smell. Oh no, I'm out of airtime. Shops are closed. I have to wait till tomorrow before I can get airtime. She would think I was saying she smells.
Get airtime instantly with your phone.
What?
Just use Airtel Money. Dial *185#, select buy airtime, and follow the steps.
What?
Sorry, babe. My line got cut. I was just saying you smell better than any flower in the world.
Top up with Airtel Money and get 100% bonus airtime instantly with every top-up made. Now that's 100% extra from Airtel. Dial *185# to top up now.
Airtel Money. Simple, secure, instant.
We transact every day, and for centuries, currencies have changed hands. Business is a must, and that is why Money Matters makes it a must to talk business.
It's the biggest market out in Uganda because of East African connections and business.
From farming to business trading, we give you all the angles.
When you're harvesting, that one is the most important part, which we have to be there.
We'll bring you all the details that doing business has to offer.
Thoughts of the business leaders in the market.
The airline industry doesn't operate like any other industry, where you go in and buy a shirt and this shirt is 20 shillings today, it will be 20 shillings tomorrow, 20 shillings.
The analysis of the costs and the income in the industries. From wherever we are, we talk business, and at Money Matters, where money indeed matters. Business is a must.
So, don't miss talking business with us every Thursday only on NTV.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. Over to Simon for today's big story. Good morning once again, Simon.
Yes, good morning, Mabel. Once again, welcome to this edition of Morning at NTV's Big Story on the 11th day of September 2014. And we're coming to you live from the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel. This morning, we are talking something sexual. Not in the sense in which you perverts are already looking at it, but we are looking at it from a point of decrying sexual harassment at places of work. For the most part, many women, for the most part indeed, not men really, in the labor market, find it a very huge challenge that for them to advance from one level to another, they possibly are expected to offer or are expected to give, even unwillingly, sexual favors to those who hold the mantle for their promotion. But we also know that sexual harassment has been used as a tool against those of the fairer sex by the perpetuators. For whatever reasons, one certainly can only guess as much as I'm doing. Why is this so prevalent? And what are the remedies out of this situation? Because certainly it is not a situation that we should perpetuate, but rather a situation that we should all gag up and fight against. Especially so that it comes in the wake of government's continuous wooing of investors to come here and set up shop, only for them to come claiming to offer jobs to Ugandans and at the end of the day use and sexually abuse them. That is what we'll be discussing when we return. Welcome back. This morning I have the privilege to have with me Diana Prida Praf. I love the combination and rhyme of your names, madam. She's a legal officer at the Platform for Labour Action, a non-governmental organization that is out to ensure that workers' rights are fully respected in the marketplace. Yeah. I just described a very nasty scenario of sexual abuse at the workplace, and indeed, if I remember quite very well, I read press reports recently talking about a factory in Namamve, and to be very exact and without missing my words, it was a ZAM factory where some people in there are accusing the management of that place of 101 crimes, including and not limited to sexual harassment of the female staff there. That for anyone to move a step further from the packaging line to become a supervisor, you expected to offer sexual favors to one of these Indian managers that are in there. And when you refuse, you are damned. When you give in, you are damned. So you are damned if you do, you are damned if you do not. To what extent is this state of affairs prevalent? How many of such stories are replicated across the country? Maybe we'll start from there.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for hosting me today. The cases of sexual harassment are quite shockingly very prevalent, but this never comes out because of the nature of I would say the offense that it is. You know, as Uganda as a society, sexuality, sexual is a taboo. So it does happen on a wide scale, and that example that you've highlighted, Azam, could say is just one in a multitude of perpetrators that are out there.
Hundreds?
Thousands.
Or even tens of thousands? What
tens of thousands. It could even be tens of thousands because it goes unreported. You attempt to report it, there are repercussions for that. You're stigmatized, you're thrown out, you report it, you're still not safe. You don't report it, it keeps going on. So it is, there are statistics for that, cannot easily be pinpointed, but I would confirm that it is very prevalent, especially in factory settings, like with the investors that you've mentioned, and especially geared towards the women.
And especially those women who are perceived not to be of any higher education caliber, or those who are into manual jobs. We could sit here and whinge all about this situation till kingdom come. But now I think it's high time, since I am with you, this is not a show where we come to lament about a problem, but where we now look out for solutions. We'll start from your side as Platform for Labour Action. When such cases are put to your attention, how do you swing into action, and what are some of the success stories that you may wish to share with us, so that we believe that you are something robust, you have the back and you have the bite?
When such cases do come to us as Platform for Labour Action, we're a civil society organization that, like you've mentioned, aims at promoting and protecting the rights of vulnerable and marginalized workers. Our primary role is to provide legal aid to such workers, and our focus is those low-income earners or those workers who are in a position where they're vulnerable to abuse and cannot seek justice once it happens, who properly fit into a category that we're talking about today, such as those women. When someone would approach us with such a case, the first thing to do is to try to get the bottom of the case.
You investigate.
Precisely.
Remember, the perpetuator is normally at a higher influential level than the perpetuatee?
Yes, please.
In fact, we are missing the mark when we restrict sexual harassment to a factory setting, for that matter, where there is some labor here. But even when we're talking about domiciles where there are heads of households who are sexually abusing house helps and all that. And by the time you're investigating such a case, the head of household possibly has the ability to sway you away from the case, and you know how they normally do it. How can we trust that indeed you get down to the bottom of this without fear or favor, ill will or affection, or no influence that is akin to corruption?
The most common characteristics of all these cases, that by the time someone reports, like I earlier mentioned, they are fed up, they are ready to quit, and there is nothing like they are being held ransom by the boss. By the time someone comes out, they have had it. So they're willing to give everything, and by this time, the boss no longer has a hold on them. So, for instance, at this time, they're no longer worried.
But the boss can have a hold on you.
No.
They can always
we do not do it. It is not a personal investigation where someone from PLA goes in. We work together with other organs, police, the labor officer, the LCs.
Just made it worse. Maybe if it were you, I would understand. But the police?
Yeah, the police.
LCs?
Yes. I'm talking about...
I don't know, maybe I meet the wrong police officers.
Probably.
Maybe I have a very weird LC1 chairperson where I come from.
Probably.
But I can tell you the moral turpitude of most of these police officers that I meet when it comes to such investigations is very questionable.
That cannot be denied, but I will also say that some of the few cases where we've had success have been reported by local council officials in those villages.
Who possibly have, say for example, if you have a conflict with my LC1 chairperson, he will be very much willing, if I did not give him some kickback as I was trying to extend my fence,
of course you can't rule that out.
If I have not bribed him to write me a letter to get a passport for my wife, things like that.
No, you can't rule that out, but I'll say there are few who are good and they're good at it, and it has worked out well. Because you cannot exclude them, because let's take, for example, a domestic worker. You cannot exclude the local council leaders, because those will be your first source of reference to even say, did she actually work there? You have to prove that she worked there, because the employer can say no. So if you bypass the local council, how are you going to prove that they work there? It's even like with the exam workers, like you're stating. You could need someone, LC, the gatekeeper, to actually prove that they work there, because in most cases they're not documented. There's no proof that they work there. So you have to, it's inevitable that you work with these local structures. Some may be corrupt, but some will be true, and it will go through.
Your civil society organizations, you seem to deal with agencies of the state like LCs and police, but nothing higher than that, say possibly a synergy with the ministry or a justice system that is able to robustly and deterrently punish the perpetrators of this. Are you confident that whatever successes you've registered are deterrent enough for not to allow future commitment of these crimes?
If you'd give me an opportunity, I would complete that story that I was starting to tell you.
Please tell me.
We do not limit ourselves to the lower levels. We do go ahead, because in labor relations, the structure starts at the labor office. There's the labor commissioner, and very soon we'll have our industrial court, which is the structure which is supposed to handle those labor complaints. So we don't limit ourselves to local councils and police, like you're saying. We go ahead to the labor office, who is the court of first instance in such issues, who is vested with the powers to investigate these issues, have a sitting, a hearing, and pass a ruling, which if any of the parties not satisfied with, they can appeal to the industrial court. So there is a robust structure. Say the industrial court has not been functioning, but there is a structure in place to address that. And further to that, we do have laws, and I think maybe the issue why they do not come through is lack of awareness. But we do have unemployment, sexual harassment regulations, which came out in 2012, which clearly spell out
awareness, indeed.
Yeah.
Many of these perpetuatees of this crime are not aware that in fact they have a right, or there are laws that protect them from such hyenas, or that there is a recourse that they can take. Perhaps even many of these perpetuators do not think that there is anything above them that can restrain them. I mean, I am a supervisor in an Indian-owned factory, perhaps owned by a relative of mine. I have come in from Bangalore, and I am seen as an investor. When I walk out of the factory, people call me Muzungu. I am held in very high regard. Is the awareness going down to everyone, perpetuator and perpetuatee?
I would say there's still a gap in that, but that is something we're also trying to address. For instance, last year we had a training with labor officers and different people to to educate them about these new regulations. We are fairly new, and many of the labor officers who are supposed to handle these issues came out and said, actually, we didn't know about this, and yet they're the ones supposed to handle them. So if the labor officers were supposed to enforce them and not aware of them, it reflects, do these people actually know that this exists? Can they use it if even the people who are supposed to implement it don't know it? So that's something we also try to address. We have awareness sessions in the community. If an employer calls us in to advise the workers, we'll talk to them about it, and we try to do on radio, different media, to ensure that the person who these laws aim to protect get that information. But it's still a problem because they do not know that it is there. They don't know the
Diana, you have worked very closely with labor issues in this country, but I'm also sure you know the kind of work ethic most of we Ugandans do have.
Yeah.
That we have got a work ethic where we want jobs, but we do not actually work on those jobs. And many times when the whip is cracked, to put us in line and ensure that we deliver on our fundamental KPIs, we're always looking out for excuses and crying wolf. And I'm not trying to be sexist here or trying to accuse the female folk, but many times that issue of their sexuality and sexual abuse is used as a red herring on otherwise what would have been their incompetence and failure to meet the requirements of their job. How do you distinguish between an industrious labor or giver who is sexually abused as opposed to a lazy, incompetent person who is using that as a red herring when indeed the whip is being cracked on them?
The nature in which you frame the question cannot cover you from being labeled sexist, because that's exactly what you come out as. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it is that those excuses, you know, they don't want to work, they're lazy, that make people that have perpetuated this. You know that if I complain, she's lazy. It's because I told her to do this and she don't want to do it. If I complain about it, she wants a promotion, she asks for a favor. It's, I think...
And I said no, and she claims that I sexually harassed.
So whereas there is a risk that there are those people who are going to use it as an excuse, we cannot use that as an excuse. Sexual harassment is real, it happens, and this time we recognize it for what it is.
I mean, theft is real, Diana, but doesn't mean that every suspected thief gets convicted of theft. And that's what I'm trying to do. That there could be one innocent guy who's being framed by an incompetent person.
Theft is real.
Yes. So that's sexual harassment.
And that's why I'm saying that is, you will not take a cube of sugar or a pen from the office and then say...
after all, because they stole millions of shillings.
Precisely. Or you're not going to use that as an excuse of, but we always take pens to take a box of pens. So whereas there are those people who use it as an excuse, we cannot be deterred from enforcing it fully or recognizing it as an offense.
Again, share with me this legal mantra that you say that to incarcerate one innocent man, you're better off setting free how many? Frame it again for me.
No, I'm not covered for that one.
Well, but I mean, there could be cases. I mean, my question is speaking to the ability to conclusively and extensively investigate beyond reasonable doubt that in fact the person that you are punishing is indeed a perpetuator and not just a mere suspect, that otherwise is innocent.
Yeah, the investigations are geared at that, and as I was pointing to the regulations, they clearly set out all these procedures that if they were followed, that truth would come out. Having a sexual harassment disciplinary committee committed to that, to have investigations, how are the investigations conducted in a free and fair manner without causing discrimination to anyone. The person who reports should not be victimized for it. The person who cooperates, if I say Simon is sexually harassing me and then Joel somewhere says...
God forbid.
God forbid. And Joel says, yeah, actually it is true. Joel should not be punished for that. It's a mechanism where all the parties involved are protected, and there is due regard is given to ensure that at the end of the day, the truth comes out.
Sexual crimes, like you said earlier on, are extremely difficult in this part of the world to even talk about. But let's put it this way. In a situation where sexual harassment, like you said, by the time they come out, they've really had it. Someone can argue, possibly, they come out because something has gone wrong. The relationship has possibly not really worked out very well. So the person crying victim could possibly have also been perpetuating it or complacent and all that, also hoping to get certain ends, and now that they possibly haven't, or they have and now want to kick the ladder, which they've used to climb up there, and they are reporting and crying wolf. Isn't that really unfair to the perpetuators? Let's look at it from that angle as well.
There's nothing unfair to the perpetuators. As long as you're a perpetuator, you are a perpetuator. There's been nothing unfair to you.
The one who is complacent, isn't that also a perpetuator of the same time unto themselves?
And they do usually come out.
Self-destruction.
At the end of the day, this will come out. If the investigation is followed properly, it will come out. We have a housemaid crying, my boss raped me. go back, trace it back, and it's, no, we've actually been doing this for 2 years. It's now that I've told her to leave. That story will come out. It's not only
and at that
with
point, what are the ramifications for someone who came and bore false witness? In other words, saying I was sexually and then you realize that they were actual perpetrators of this in one way or another. What are the ramifications?
That is why the investigations should be held in a manner that is not discriminatory, in a manner that is not going to cause further injury than has already been held. It's not say Diana is crying foul, she has been sexually harassed, and then the next day it's published in the newspapers. No, it should be systematic, such at the end of the day, there's as little damage to all the parties concerned, if at all, if at the end of the day there is nothing that actually happened. But to the perpetrator as well, I would say, there's recourse to defamation. If that story has leaked and caused you suffering and turns out it's not true, there's always legal recourse to bring charge of defamation, if you say so. Penal offense of...
That's like the long walk to freedom, as they call it. The damage has been done, as someone can say. But then as we conclude this, let's look at you as civil society organizations that pull this out. Of course, many times you get accused by the general public that you are always very quick to jump onto 1 or 2 cases just to earn from them the political and other fame capital that comes with it. I'll give you a case in point. When this girl who was wooed by some Pakistani car importers taken to their house as a maid and was sexually abused by multitudes of them. Today, we don't know what became of that girl. All civil society organizations in that realm, women rights movement, they went and carried out demonstrations and took cameramen and photographed them at the gate of UASA and all that. And as they were, when the euphoria and the celeb status and the glitz and glamour of the story was out, the girl was left to wallow in her own. I mean, we saw a government minister shedding tears by her bedside and all that. Where is this girl? Where are these people that were all over her? Do we have this knee-jerk reaction, spur of the moment kind of reaction to these things, or do we actually follow them to their logical conclusion and we come out and say, this is case closed?
I would not particularly want to address that particular case, but I would draw reference from other cases that we've had. There is, it's difficult to rule out that perception that the public has that it's a knee-jerk response, but due regard should be had to the nature of this thing that we're talking about, the sexual harassment. The victim will turn up, have interest, and at the end of the day pull out. So you can never be too sure. We've had instances where someone turns up today, I'm tired, this man is mistreating me, I want to leave. Upon investigation, 2 days later, called to court to testify, no, I just wanted my money, he hadn't paid me. So you can never be too sure. So before we jump onto that bandwagon and say civil society organizations jump onto people, we should understand the nature of these victims, the crimes, and the complexities involved therein. It's not that maybe, you saw what happened on TV, the girl crying, fall and all. So what were the civil society organizations supposed to do, jump again and foster? So I would not like to comment about that case, but should give due regard to the nature of the clients that we work with, especially in issues of sexual violations, and yeah, give some gratitude where it's due. We do follow through that case, come up with results, and we've registered a number of success stories with Platform for Liberal Action with over 8,000 or 800 people whose cases were resolved in this year alone.
Well, I want to believe that your actions are not specifically onto sexual harassment at the workplace, and you handle a wide range of challenges in the workplace. Let me just take you away from the sexual harassment thing, because that one looks like we're out for a round robin, but the message has been made. Clearly, you're a perpetuator. You are now, like with anything else, you face the ramifications and the dire consequences of your actions. Let's get down to where labor givers are not adequately protected from the adversaries of being in that workplace. And I'm just using so many words to simply say, if you work in a factory that requires you to handle huge and dangerous machinery, at least as a very basic, you need to be given protective gear.
True.
I've seen guys work in mines without gloves, without helmets. And all that.
Yeah.
I mean, some people can only say that with this job, you work at it for 5 years, and the rest of your life you are just out there to die because you inhale dust. There are no protective gear against inhalation of particles into your lungs. A boulder can hit you. The same Azam place, I read in the newspaper, there's a guy who claims that at one time his fingers were mauled or bludgeoned by one of their machines, and not much help was given. How, how much does this bother you, that much of the labor that we give is possibly not given that very serious regard? Human beings are treated as a statistic by most of these job givers.
That is very true, and it's a matter of great concern to us. And as a matter of fact, we are looking at the Workers' Compensation Act to see those flaws and see how it can be rejuvenated to really cover our workers, especially those like you've mentioned who suffer accidents. But I would also like to point out that the issue of enforcement of those regulations, safety at work, occupational safety and health, lies squarely with the government. That is the Labour Office, the Department of Labour, who have the primary role of inspecting those workplaces, ensuring that the employers are compliant, that the employees are protected, have the protective gear. So basically our role as civil society, interaction with this usually comes in at a point where these laws have been flouted, the workers have been exploited, they have now suffered injury, and they're now seeking compensation or medical aid, which I would say is already too late. At the point they come, they've lost their fingers and cannot be saved. We try to advocate and push the labour officers and the labour directorates to do what they're supposed to do. So if a case comes to us, say for example the Azam case has been highlighted, can the labour officer or the labour inspector responsible for that area carry out an inspection, demand that the employers comply with the law, because that is their mandate and they should do that. As civil society, we don't want to be seen to be, like you've said, knee-jerk, carrying out the case and doing this, which is at the end of the day will not bear results. At the end of the day, the labour inspectors, the labour officers, the people who are supposed to act, should act to ensure that there is a lasting, because it is not one example, it's not only Azam, it has happened elsewhere. So the long-term solution is to...
Of course, at the risk of sounding vain, I can tell you that where I work after here at ESCOM, where we generate electricity, a very highly dangerous product with heavy machinery, many of all our workers have, and it's mandated. You just do not step on the turbine floor without enough PPE, as protective gear to yourself. And in fact, we've gone 3 years without any lost time injury, and we pride in that so much, so that we have our local reward system called the Blue Flag that we have been awarded as
That
ESCOM.
is commendable,
But how many companies in this country do have that in town? Because we were not enforced by government. There's no labour officer coming down to ESCOM and say, hey, Madam, no one ensure that everyone has got protective gear.
That's why
it is an internal self-regulating, something that you realize as a responsible corporate citizen. But how do we ensure that we have corporate citizens that are responsible for the welfare of their staff out there? What move can you as Platform for Labour Action institute to ensure that this becomes a culture not enforceable by laws and policemen?
Like you've said, and I appreciate the use of the term responsible, it should be your responsibility as an employer. You should know this is dangerous, I should give it to them. But like in any other field, there will always be those who are errant, those who want to maximize profits as opposed to the safety. The worker safety is not there. At the end of the day, how much profits do we get? So at the end of the day, for as long as that is, because the compliant ones, the responsible ones are the few. You could name them off the tips of your fingers. The many investors, I would say, are the multitude, the ones who do not have any kind of protection whatsoever.
Doesn't that bother you, and doesn't it speak to some level of incompetence, especially from those agencies that you talked about?
It does. It does, and it's something that we always bring up with them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as civil society, our role will be to advocate, to push for the implementation and for the enforcement by those bodies responsible to do it. Because if that is, we cannot overlook it. The employers should do it themselves, but if they're not doing it, can the people who are supposed to enforce it ensure that they do it?
Sorry, I just realized that I'm putting so many questions on you, the questions that I should have actually reserved for the Honorable Minister Mwesigwa Rukutana of Labour. And when I have him on this show, I certainly put this to him. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Morning at NTV's Big Story. It's been very enlightening on our part, Diana Prida Prof. This is very interesting.
Thank you for having me.
And yes, we of course do commend you for the job that you are doing, and we of course hold you to the highest standard that you continue doing this very job. Do not tire, because it's a noble, even if it's an uphill task.
It is an uphill task, but we enjoy it and we'll keep doing it.
Very good. We'll be back with Simon Says. We continue to grapple with high levels of unemployment in this country. The few who heed the call for investment in this part of Africa come here ostensibly to mean business. But do they? When they come and say they're offering hundreds of thousands of Ugandans jobs, perhaps even millions, are they offering those jobs for the merit for which they are supposed to be conducted? Or are they offering these jobs as a way of affirmative action, as if to say they are doing Ugandans a favor? Well, be that as it may, why then should they go ahead and engage in such acts as sexual abuse of, and I hasten to add, of their workers? This is deplorable. It's something that we all must gag up against. If you know of any case where sexual harassment is the order of the day, if you know of a place where the investor is up to no good and all they are is to ensure that they squeeze whatever energy there is out of you and make such promises as promotions or rewards based on sexual favors. Share it with us. You know where to find us. You know our Twitter handle, you know our Facebook page, or you even know our physical address at the Serena Conference Center. Talk to us if you're afraid to talk to the police, or possibly get down to such organizations as the Platform for Labor Action. Those possibly will put a shield to your face, highlight your plight, and at the end of the day, together, as a concerted effort, shall fight this vice. Have a wonderful Thursday morning. It's 9/11. Terrorists are always averse to such days because it is on such days that they carry out commemorative terror attacks. I think it's imperative on all of us to be each other's keeper and our own keepers. Stay away from those places that could be prone to a terror attack. Report any suspicious activity or item. And of course, don't forget, I do not know your levels of spirituality, to pray for the souls of those that did not win the battle against terror, while at the same time, indeed, protecting ourselves. Have a good morning. Let's meet same time, same place tomorrow when we discuss yet another insightful big story. Good morning.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat. Follow the beat. Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat. Follow the beat. Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
I'm going to blow your mind and I'm going to twist your taste buds. The flavors are already coming together. I can feel them. Very lovely, very appetizing, very healthy. Remember, the way you see it, the way you like it, is the way you get it from my kitchen to your kitchen.
Ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli lwakuna butereevu ku NTV akawungeezi.
You can bring everybody in Parliament as long as they can wake up and vote for their NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am MUI?
It's absolutely true. I admired President Museveni.
Is the ICC a fiscal code targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only 2 individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
Look at all the juices that are in there, and that is what I'm looking for.
People have had different experiences over the last couple of years. You just meet someone at work, you may hit it off after a few months, but then you do not know that person in depth. So I must admit, I am over 30. I won't say because people will get scared. So I did hit 30, and yeah, it was a concern then. Now also my people at home, my family, were getting concerned. But I always said I wanted to get married, you know, with not just do it for the sake of doing it. I wanted to do it and to be happy.
You talk about doing it not just for the sake of it. There's a local drama that was showing at the National Theatre some time back. I will marry when I want. Was it by whom? Ngugi wa Thiong'o, one of those people. You talk about pressure. For people like you and I who are not married and seem ready for marriage, there's always pressure. Pressure from homes, pressure from, you know, our colleagues, pressure from everywhere. In relationships, one would say they've gotten their fingers burnt and that kind of thing. How does one get to handle this pressure? Sometimes it is from people you cannot, you find it a little bit convoluted not to give in to. Spiritual leaders, parents, and sometimes they even get people for you and say this person, Kale, they look good, Kale, they are spiritual, Manya what story, and you're thinking, eh, they actually don't look very bad after all to get it. How does a single person deal with this pressure?
The pressure can be immense, especially when you're on the other side of 30.
Which,
The pressure is immense from many
Is it
corners.
more for ladies?
I think it's more for ladies because I think a man, even at 40, you're still considered an eligible bachelor. I don't know how many times you've had a 40-year-old lady, 45-year-old lady being called an eligible spinster.
What?
They're
They
like
are written off.
They're written off, really. So the pressure is immense, and in some cases, internally as well, the pressure is immense. I mean, many times I thought, you know what, if I just went ahead and had my child with so-and-so, I mean, what? People would talk, but the world wouldn't end. And that's what I used to say, you know. The pressure is, and I've had, and unfortunately, some of my friends will tell you, you know, Mabel, the doctor told me I have high blood pressure and I will not be able to carry a child when I'm 37. So I had better have my child now. Especially fibroids, another thing that so many, and I think our doctors need to learn, you know. I've also been to a gynecologist once, and the lady asked me, so why don't you have children? And I told her, I don't have children because I'm not married. And she just looked at me. But, you know, our bodies work, you know, in strange ways. And, you know, the doctor will tell you, these are facts. And they are facts. The older
Fibroids
you get,
and
the harder it is to conceive. So you are in your early 30s, you're thinking, you know what, things are not good. You go to a doctor, the doctor says, chikoleko, you know.
Do something about it now.
You're not married. There's so much pressure. Your relatives are telling you, just get anyone. And you're like, okay, let me get anyone. Now, even this thing of artificial insemination and what, people are actually doing it. So I really think you need to have a vision, know what you want, know how you're going to get it, probably, or don't allow society to define you. That's also another thing. People will call you maybe an off layer. It doesn't really matter what they call you. It matters what you respond to.
But you sound very intelligent this morning.
No,
Come every day you are full of wisdom like this. Okay, not that you don't exude it.
Society is going to label you.
Without
You are a TV personality. They are going to, you wear suits.
Wow,
you know, the other day they were talking about Dakaba and his 40,000 suits. I don't even know where he buys them. They're actually 40,000. But there's a lot of
that is
pressure.
too high, you mean?
I don't know, too high or too low. I don't even know what the point of the article was. But it really, define yourself. Say, I am Joel Senyonyi. I am Mabel Kevirungi. This is who I am. This is what I want in life. They will call you eligible bachelor. For me, they will call me a snob, an off-layer. What do I want? An angel.
People used to call me chief single. I led the singles ministry at my church for a while, and eventually I handed over. They said, okay, you've handed over. Why don't you get married? But talking about that as well, there's people that like you and I that are not married, that don't believe in marriage. They want to get a kid and move on, especially the ladies. Other guys, they're all over the place. You know, they date this one, engage with the other one, introduce the other one, get married to the other, and confusion all over the place. Yeah, but there's people that don't believe in marriage. Do you believe in marriage?
I do believe in marriage, but the scenario you've talked about is quite interesting. I was having a discussion with some of my sisters who live in Australia, and we're talking about Julia Gillard, the former Prime Minister of Australia. Strangely enough, she does not believe in marriage. She has a partner. They have been together, and that's how they move. I mean, even like Francois Hollande, the French president, you know, you have like a legal partner. I don't know if that makes sense. They have a partner. In Australia, they actually do not allow gays cannot marry in Australia. And she was against it very, very much because she doesn't believe in marriage. People believe that if people love
good from far.
So the world we're in is very, I don't know, and they will actually argue their case that what is the point of marriage? If I love him, he loves me, he has his own property, I have my own, he has his own bank accounts, I have my own bank accounts, you have your cup, I have mine.
Well, some ladies, of course, say, my money is my money, but his money is our money. Just.
Yes, but marriage institution, if you look at the men, for example, in the black men in American prisons, research has shown, I think more than half of them did not grow up with father figures.
Actually, some statistics put it at about 70%
exactly.
and the like, criminality and so on.
So the family is very key to the development of society. Whether you agree or believe in marriage or not, having children elsewhere, there is a lot. I think even you talked about it once. Growing up without proper parenting.
Yes.
You know, in some cases, I know people die. You know, I know some friends of mine my age who are already widows. You know, sometimes life is unfortunate. You know, things happen. But for you to purposely go out and choose, I will have a child, and maybe I will not tell anyone who the father is, I think that is very unfair. Unfair to the child, unfair. Probably the father doesn't want to know, but at least tell the child who the father is.
Let me get a bit personal here. You will get married sometime, I don't know when. How have you been preparing for marriage, you as Mabel? Oh, Mabel.
Well, if I'm honest, I think I spend a lot of time mourning about my singleness. And
is it?
But the last
Why?
couple
Do you
of
think,
years,
like some singles feel it is, you know,
a
bad thing? You know, it is evil, or that can be something wrong with you?
There is so much pressure, and especially when you are a single woman, people will say, "Oh, you want to climb up the career ladder," and many times I say, "But what career ladder is it I'm climbing?" You know, and
maybe
you
these
look
ladders
at
to the rooftop.
You look at women like, you know, Oprah Winfrey, Condoleezza Rice, you know, so many women, and some of them actually don't want to get married or have children, but they just want to concentrate on their careers. But there's that assumption that, what do they say? I have forgotten it anyway. It's a saying they have in Uganda. But what I did, truthfully, the last couple of years was forget about my single life and move on with life. I mean, for example, working on TV, I saw the advert in the newspaper. I decided to apply for the job. Something I probably would never have done. And that's how I got onto NTV. It was through a newspaper advert. It was just going out and doing
to enjoy your life.
I actually
live
acted
and
in
let
a play
live.
in National Theatre.
Hey.
I took part in the MTN marathon. I traveled. I bought myself an air ticket. I went abroad.
You went to South Sudan now?
I tell you, my brother. So I decided I'm not going to live in this cocoon. I mean, even the way I dress, I started wearing brighter colors, smelling the leaves, you know, take time and enjoy life, because life will pass you by. And you get to 40 and you're like, oh, you're just so upset, so mad at everyone else, you know. Just try to enjoy yourself. Like I said, have a vision.
Have a vision.
Define yourself. Say, I'm going to be happy the way I am. Give yourself value. Give yourself value.
Mabel Kebirungi, you sound like a love guru this morning. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts. You've heard it from the lady. Look, pressures are all over the place, but I think people need to oftentimes mind their own business. Sometimes the parents, the things they tell, they want us to get married on their behalf. And of course, our colleagues, etc., etc. Live your life. Enjoy it. As a single person, live your life to the full. You know, so that when you get married, you enjoy it as well.
As a single person, don't count the days. Make the days count.
Make the days count. I cannot add any more to that. I'll just spoil it. That's the Everyday Life segment for this morning. Thanks a bunch for joining us. The sports segment is coming up with this man who wears Simanya Suso, 40,000 shillings. Dakawa Isma Chigongo. Join him in a bit.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirungi, and Brian Molondo.
Hello, is this Munji?
Yo, this is Munji. Chechiganye.
I am feeling your new Virgin Jam right now. It is off the hook.
Thanks, man. I'm also feeling you. Sedusa.
Make a call for whatever reason. Call someone, call anyone, and change your life. Make a call and you could win 100 million shillings, a car, or a smartphone with free data for a year. Plus, win 2 free minutes every day. Airtel. Together we can.
To survive the test of time, buildings need to be strong and able to withstand the forces of nature. Tiantang Group has introduced TTG TMT bars, hollow sections, MS plates, manufactured using top quality raw materials with the latest technology on Ugandan market. TTS bars are strong, weather resistant, 100% weldable, easy to bend at any angle, and are marked TTS. So look for the mark while back.
For centuries, changed because of the most important part.
Thoughts of the today it will be 20 shillings tomorrow. Where money indeed matter.
Expose. My name is Cut, aka Mr. Showbiz.
When I'm in Uganda, I only listen to DJ Baby Love.
When you're dancing on the light, girl walk out, your body down no fly, your fingernail them no fear fly.
You have a problem with it?
No, I ain't got no problem.
You don't use my mic, man. This is exposed mic.
I go deal with you personally. XFB, it's officially back. Yeah, I'm in this heaty with cats. It's what we do, baby. Put UG on the map. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Hey.
Tadi Muganda yagala munne kututumuka abanyankole mweyagalidde mu Kampala abajja okulonda mwafunamu bibanja mu Uganda
I'm that dude, so they come and love me.
You're going to start paying for watching Exposed.
I wasn't born last night. I know these hoes ain't right. We could do this all night.
Guess what show just won Best Entertainment Program?
Log in for the glitz and glamour of Kampala's most flamboyant people and events.
It's my time!
I'm here today for Coco Fingers video shoot.
Big up NTV. Thanks for the support. Log in. Ndiwa nole ronzi ze kukakasa.
You're Golfy and you're watching Login.
Don't touch that dial, you know what I'm saying. It's Login.
We could do this all night. We could do this all night.
On the next episode, brought to you by
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
On the next episode of Mali.
Huh? What did he say? And what does he want in return for it?
I live in hell.
I'm thinking that you should have a chat with Nandi.
I already don't like where you're going with this.
I haven't even said anything yet.
We're happy to help you through this time, but as it were, we are doing you a favor.
Doing me a favor? Really? Do I need to remind you who I am?
You're contesting the will, which technically means you're not entitled to anything from this company.
Robert, somebody, there's Robert, Jera.
Mali.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning at NTV this beautiful Thursday, the 11th of September. It brings so many memories, if you're to ask many people. Well, this is the sports update. Joining me is Isma Brand, not too well. Hopefully he'll be in tomorrow. Isma, before we talk about yesterday, it's September 11th, 2011, 2001.
Yeah.
Where were you? Do you remember?
I was actually a student at Kako Senior Secondary School, and I remember it was.
I
was still in O level.
I can't even say where I was.
You can't say I was, but anyway, women lie about their age. I don't want to lie about mine.
I think I was in primary. Anyway.
So I remember the time when I first heard the story. It was in the afternoon, I think Ugandan time, because it was in the morning in New York. I think between 2 and 3 p.m. when I heard the story, a plane has hit a building in America. I'm thinking, is America watching the movies, the one that sends one soldier to kill a whole Vietnamese army? At the time, it was so unbelievable. But when you look back how time passes, there should be so many memorials in New York today. And I look back and I'm thinking, probably, it's not something everyone would have imagined at the time. But over time, because I used to be a very good reader, the job has not let me read as much about so many things. It's amazing. It's annoying that actually Bin Laden had promised America for a very long time that he would attack them in their own backyard, and they didn't hit that intelligence. It's extremely unfortunate when people lose their lives that way.
I know it has actually changed the world. When I think about, going through an airport, you remove your belt, you remove your shoe, you can't go with liquids. Even here in our workplaces, there's a church, mosques. I think all that stems from 9/11 when Bin Laden decided to, I don't know, give terrorists a new face or something.
And reminds you of that thing that George Bush said in the aftermath. You're either with us or against us, when just went and did everything wrong after that.
Well, on to sports. Yesterday, the Uganda Cranes did us very proud. I saw you on Akawungazi.
Yeah.
Tell us, what was the mood like?
Probably the perfect mood, because I've been saying that the entire week that I thought there was a very positive vibe about the game, right from the players through to the team and straight into the fans, and that is the kind of result that it deserved. By 2-0. I was in Nambole from around midday. Many of you walked in probably at around 7. And unfortunately, of course, there are things that happen that are not the game. One of them is that one of the gates was broken. Fans got in, just pushed through, because I think the gates were poorly managed. And then
were the queues long and people got impatient and said, we'll...
Yeah, that's part of it. And then, of course, the blackout that I've learned that it's not entirely umeme. It is a technical failure of the floodlights for Nambole Stadium management. But
how long
I think
were they off?
For about 8 minutes.
8 minutes?
8 minutes. I've seen them go off longer, even for better organized and more financially stable institutions in sport, including the NFL Super Bowl. You remember the lights went off?
That's different. This is Uganda.
Yeah,
we expected it to happen, and they did not prove us wrong. It actually
exactly.
happened.
I think you cannot miss the story. But for me, those are minor things. So, the most important thing was the result.
So it was a perfect result.
Yeah, the perfect result, I think, for Uganda, with the exception of, I think, the saves that Onyango made. Those 2 Geoffrey Massa goals in a brilliant first half for the Uganda Cranes is all everyone will remember. If Uganda does qualify, everyone will forget about what happened at the gate, what happened with the blackout. Because entirely, while the story could comprise all those things, those are footnotes. I think for me entirely, you read the page and you see 2-0, Massa in the 21st, Massa in the 41st, the second, probably the best goal scored in Uganda Cranes colours, and you're thinking, perfect day, perfect result, Uganda top of Group E with 4 points, Ghana on 4. And that's the kind of thing everyone would have wanted going to Nambole yesterday.
Are we seeing Geoffrey Massa higher and higher, go higher and higher? Simon said earlier that it was as though the Guinea team was against Geoffrey Massa.
I've got to say yes. We who do this job have a tendency to say Massa 2-0, Massa 2, Guinea 0. But I've got to say that he's a player who is loved and loathed in equal measure, because he can be extremely wasteful. But in our situation, I think he's the best option in terms of a striker. He's the one who will do that extra thing. I don't think we have anything better than Geoffrey Massa. And I've got to be honest, not because I'm a big fan or he's the best player in the world, but is what we have. It's a bit of probably Gabon having Daniel Kuza, the years when he was their best player. I've got to say that over the years, many people berate him for being wasteful. But for him to go and score 11 goals for Uganda in the last 8 years, and we probably don't play 8 internationals every other year in the qualification, I think Massa is doing himself a lot of justice. And you look back, the 2 goals he scored against Lesotho back in 2006, the 2 he scored against Benin, and then the 2 last night. I think he can do a job for the team. People just need to keep trusting him. And while he's disappointed many people, I think if I'm used to the word appointed, he's appointed on more occasions than he's disappointed for me. And for me, he's the best option that Uganda have.
Okay, tell us about the other Group E game, Ghana versus Togo. These are the other teams that are in our group. Tell us about what happened there. We wanted a draw. Did it happen?
No, it didn't. Ghana got the result, which in retrospect,
I wanted them to win.
Which in retrospect, when I look back on what the group looks like, should be a very good result for Uganda. Because the moment Christian Atsu scored that third, after Manuel Adebayo had brought Togo back into the tie at 2-2, I thought now Ghana have 4 points like Uganda. Togo, for me, are already out. They haven't garnered any points in 2 games, so they're on 0. And then their next game is in Namboli. So that means that if Uganda beat up on Togo, then it's a shootout between Uganda Cranes and Ghana for who gets the top slot. And then probably Guinea, if they lose to Ghana in their next encounter, Guinea will also be out of the picture. So I've got to say that for me, it was very important for Ghana to win. Especially after that result in Kumasi. They must have been very disappointed, dropping 2 points against Uganda. And now they travel away from home in Lome and get the result. And that's, I think, what big countries in Africa are supposed to do. And that result should put Uganda Cranes and Ghana in the driving seat in this group.
Hopefully, we'll get some relief and stop talking about 1978,
yeah.
The year we almost made it. But
the last time Uganda was at the Nations Cup.
Well, Nigeria were in Cape Town yesterday, and you had said that it was so easy for the South Africans. Did they beat Nigeria?
Somehow there is this atrociously bad record that South Africa have on Nigeria.
The Bafana boys.
Yeah,
Bafana,
in 14 games, they managed
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days. So means that the defending champions of the Africa Cup of Nations, on the opening day, they went and beat up on Sudan. Congo have 6, South Africa have 4. And that, with the next tie that is South Africa, will have to play Congo-Brazzaville in a double-header. If they split the points, then Nigeria will play catch-up. And it's getting to worrying trends for me right now for the Nigerians.
Okay. Now, Cameroon beat Ivory Coast yesterday. Was that a huge surprise? Because Ivory Coast is a big team.
So Cameroon, they've won the Nations Cup on more occasions. They appeared in more World Cups.
Ivory Coast, I think, doesn't it have more...
Their players
names.
They have names, especially Yaya Toure, but I've got to say that it's Cameroon.
Drogba.
Cameroon are the bigger country in African football. They've won more Nations Cups, and Ivory Coast have been to more World Cups. They've been to they're the team that probably Africa got to love us because of their performance in the quarterfinals of the 1990 World Cup. I've got to say that I see a renaissance. I watched Cameroon in the game against DR Congo over the weekend, and I thought, take the result of Congo-Brazzaville against Nigeria as the best result in Africa. I thought Cameroon's performance in Lubumbashi was the best performance in Africa. Now, to go and follow it up with a 4-1 result against Ivory Coast is a testament of how good this Cameroonian side could become. Clinton Njie, who has taken over the role of Samuel Eto'o, scored, and Vincent Abubakar, who scored a goal in DR Congo, also scored another one at home in Yaoundé. And this kind of result is exactly what Cameroon would have themselves into that qualifying mode, because now they have 6 points. Ivory Coast will be playing catch-up. They have 3. And I've got to say, and because of the school I went to where Cameroon was everything, I was in Central College. If you meet someone, you ask them about what they call Chikame, the football that they would play like Cameroon, is that seeing Cameroon get back to this level, for me, is a big consolation for Africa. Not many teams have kept the standard as high as Cameroon have. And recently, if you realize
that the World Cup and do Majani. In fact, that's what I was thinking when you're talking about this and giving them such great reviews.
Yeah, I think they had just a bad World Cup the last time.
They always have bad World Cups.
They were the first African team to get to the quarterfinals. You can't take that away from. Yeah, you can't take that away from them. And then there are so many other worst teams, including England, who also do nothing at the World Cup.
But about African
yeah,
teams
I've got to say that I don't think you can find better, because the qualification. Okay. You don't receive a phone call in your bedroom and you're told that come to the World Cup. You only go to the World Cup because you're one of the best 5 African sides, and that's what Cameroon do. I've got to say that seeing them play this well, I have a lot of satisfaction.
Senegal, Tunisia, very quickly.
They are running out with it in Group G because they've won their opening 2 games and now have 6 points each. Senegal won a very tough one in Botswana by 2-0, where they had a very slow start to the game. And then Tunisia went to Cairo and beat up on Egypt by a goal to 0, which means that the other teams, Botswana and Egypt, are playing catch-up. And it's very unfortunate. While I'm talking about Cameroon doing well, it's very unfortunate and makes me sad to watch Egypt play the way they are playing. I saw them lose to Senegal in the opening game. Now to go and lose 2 games in a row, that means the Egyptians, who are 7-time African champions, are in a lot of trouble. They may not be at the Nations Cup for 3rd successive tournament.
Yeah, I know. Last time we blamed it on the revolution, But now, I don't know what we can blame it on.
Mm.
The country is a bit stable.
After the revolution.
So let's end this by talking about Zone 5 in basketball. Are the teams showing any wariness after the recent games in Mombasa?
I've got to say that I don't know much read into what has changed with the teams after playing the Zone 5, the 4 of them. That is Power, City Oil, who are the champions, UC Lady Cannons and KCC Leopards, because I've watched them since they returned, and I thought City Oil in the game they lost against Warriors, I thought they were showing a bit of awareness, especially in the second half when Warriors pummeled them with 65 points there to win the game by 597-92. And then UC have only had to play KCC, which is the team they played, which they were with in the Zone 5, and won that by just a mere 2 points. I've got to say that after that, the lessons in Mombasa, I thought I would want to see them come here and dominate and play very well in the league. That hasn't happened yet, but that's because the second round in the league is always much harder than the first, because every team is way better than the one in the first round. That's why I think they're finding it very hard to win games.
Well, you can join Isma later on today at 1:30 for Omumuli, and he will be talking about cricket, the Sixers, as well as Ferrari needing a new chairman. Interesting things happening between Rosberg. I think the focus is actually on Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, but we don't have enough time for that. Let's head to your African proverb. Rice is all one, but there are many ways of cooking it.
Sure. I've never been to a kitchen. I've never tried to cook. Actually, recently,
anyway.
sometime last year I tried to boil an egg, and it came out wrong. So I don't want to get related to anything that is cooking. I probably boil water for tea. That's why I could do very well, because just the press of a switch and then it comes out. But I see if you go to places, every other time the rice is different, but it's all the same particles. Sometimes it's white, sometimes it's brown, sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's, yeah. But I don't know how literally you can translate it to life, that the same person can have different characters. True. You could meet Mabel, she's not all about her hair. She's not all the Brazilian. She could be, it could even be Indian, it could be Thailand, it could be anything. So it's about, I think, the character of people. They could be the same in skin, but they are totally different. Yeah.
There you have it, our African proverb with our guru, Isma Jakaba Chigongo. Brian, not too well, Brian. We wish you all the best. Hopefully you will be here tomorrow. Remember, you can continue following us on Twitter, Morning at NTV, Facebook, Morning at NTV, or send us an SMS to 6565. Otherwise, have a lovely day, and as Brian says, hasta la vista, baby.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.